Marguerite Henry's Brighty of the Grand Canyon, called Blue Flecked Rocks, Chapter 3. When the cakes were richly browned, the old man stacked a plate for Jake Irons and handed him a jug of honey. Then he fanned a single cake in the air to cool and sprinkled it generously with sugar. He smiled sheepishly. Brighty likes sugar better than honey, he explained. 'Tain't so slobbery. As the trapper watched, Brighty took the rolled pancake from the old man's hand and began chewing it rhythmically, thoughtfully. You two always dine on cakes and honey? Irons asked. The note of scorn in his voice was lost to Old Timer. Only when we're celebrating, stranger. And now, how about sampling a cup of coffee? Uncle Jim says it's black as a thief's heart. Jake Irons glanced up sharply, trying to read the old man's thoughts. But Hezekiah Appleyard was not even looking at his direction. Irons flashed an ugly grin. I like my coffee black as that, he retorted. The two men in the burrow finished their supper in silence, while a handful of stars pricked holes in the sky. After a while, the old prospector took a gold watch from his pocket and began winding it with a little gold key. 'Tain't but 7, he said, winding. I'll pile more wood on the fire. And how about us chinning down for some bedtime? Much obliged, Old Timer, but soon as the moon shines over the brink, I'm crossing the river and heading up the south rim. By the way, he asked, making his voice sound very casual, what do you celebrate? The old man held his tongue, thinking. He picked up a sharp-edged stone and began cleaning Brighty's hooves as though he could clear his thoughts at the same time. He failed to see that the stone he was using for a hoof pick was veined with blue. But Iron's quick eyes caught the telltale color of copper ore. His mind began racing. Now don't you bother spilling your secrets to me, Old Timer, he wheedled. It's just like I said, I'm topping out of this black pit and don't figure to come back, not ever. I'm tired of trapping. Ain't enough beaver in these waters to keep me in grub. The old man was only half listening. He was eyeing the lean, hard body, noticing the sleeves stretched tight over the bulge of muscle, and the big, broad-fingered hands with their broken fingernails, the solid legs encased in his pants. You mean you're done trapping and out of work, he asked. That's exactly what I mean. I ain't one to complain, but tonight's the first square meal I've had in weeks. When I saw your cozy camp with the critter and all, right away I says to myself, here's a man I can trust. Old Timer looked all around as if to make certain they were alone. Well, if you're really done trapping, he cried, maybe you could work for me. I need a young, muscular feller, 'cause, his voice pitched high as a boy's, 'cause me and Brighty's found an extraordinary vein of ore. Jake Irons smiled to himself at how neatly his flattery had worked. Yep, the whitehead nodded. With you and me to dig and Brighty to pack the stuff out, us three can get it rich quick. You see, I got a sister with a crippled youngster, and sick folks need lots of money. Yeah, I know, Iron said sarcastically. You're just the kind to give that stuff away. Mistaking the mockery for approval, the old man sat down, leaning happily against Brighty. You'll do, Jake Irons. His eyes were far away and joyous. You'll do as a partner in this little me mine. For a long moment, the muffled roar of the river filled in the silence, and somewhere down the canyon, a coyote howled. Even by starlight, you'll see how rich the stuff is. Hoisting himself up, the old man moved nearer and spilled the blue-flecked rocks into greedy, outstretched hands. Here, study on him, feller. Over and over, Irons turned the nuggets in his hands. Then he made a wide circuit around Brighty and fed the fire, the better to see the ore. Where'd you find these, he asked, trying to hide the eagerness in his voice. Well, friend, me and Brighty was dawdling along, loafing and poking along down close to the Colorado when we spied us, one of them horny toads. And then Brighty flips his toad over with his little old mealy nose, and underneath, guess what? Without waiting for Irons to guess, the old man went on. There underneath was one of them blue-green rocks. 'Twas only a broken-off lump, but I figured if there was one, there was more. Yeah, like mice. Exactly. And I looks up overhead and see some more this color in the overhanging rock. And me and Brighty forgets the horny toad and begins a-diggin' and a-diggin'. Got so feverish I hardly stopped for meals. If it hadn't been for Brighty bellerin' at sundown, I'd likely have starved to death. Jake Irons returned the nuggets and flopped down on the sand on the other side of the fire. Lots of veins look good to me to begin with, but then they pinch off to nothing. You're right, most of them does, but not this one. No siree, it got bigger and bigger the further I dug. Only just yesterday I was certain sure. Come morning, I'll take you to the tunnel and show you. He pointed north. 'Tain't far, just over there a piece. Well, do you see the tree ladder I built up to the tunnel? She swings out a bit over the river, but she's stout enough. Jake Irons plucked at his beard, figuring a way to accept the invitation and seem casual about it. I see you got a tent big enough for two, he said at last, and it's been a long time since I slept out of the wind. Besides, he added, looking toward the river, it'd be risky trying to cross on that cableway in the dark. Guess I'll stay till morning anyway. But your burro, he hesitated. Does he hug camp all night? You're darn tootin', he does, and it makes me mighty proud. Until I chanced on this here copper mine, I had only two things I took a pride in. One was my grandpa's gold watch with the gold key to wind it, and the other's Brighty. Found the little feller running wild along the Bright Angel Creek. So you named him Bright Angel? Him being so bright, I suppose? Yep. Only he weren't no Bright Angel at all. Great horns, but he was a sight. Some porcupine had made a pincushion out of his face. The old man clapped Brighty's rump. Remember, fellow, if I hadn't come along about then and roped you and pulled out the quills with my pliers, you'd have gone under for sure. Chuckling, the prospector turned now to Jake Irons. Guess he was so hungry and hurted he figured I was his best friend. Irons' eyes avoided Brighty, and he strove to keep the contempt out of his voice. And so he's latched on to you ever since, I take it. The white head nodded. Yep, except for summer times. You see, Irons, he's like a migratory bird. Winters, he lives down here in the canyon where it's warm. In summers, he hightails it up to the north rim where it's cool. You know, he went on, leaning back against Brighty, 'twas him that made the trail all the way up to the north rim. And mind you, Irons, that wall is so steep he couldn't go the short way. He had to zig and zag. It's over 21 miles to the top. The old man stretched his legs and dug his heels into the sand. If ever you decided to top out north instead of south, Brighty here knows the way. Don't forget it. And if he's a mind to, he can pack a pick and pan as nice as you please. Ah, you don't say, Jake Irons' eyes glinted in the firelight. But I do say, and what's more, Brighty knows character. If ever he out and out kicks a man, there's a man can't be trusted. Once, when I went to town, Brighty near kicked a barber up into the chandelier. Next I heard about it, that haircutter feller was serving time for thieving. The trapper went over to feel his beaver skin, but his mind was listening. Now, on the other hand, old timer went on, take Uncle Jimmy Owens up to the north rim. Know his son? Just by hearsay, Irons answered. He's the government lion hunter, ain't he? Yeah, he's the one. Well, Brighty's got good reason to mistrust Uncle Jimmy, 'cause he smells to high heaven at lions. And anyone knows a burro hates lions worser than work. But does he hate Uncle Jimmy? Don't he? Indeed, no. He sidles up to him to get his back scratched, same as he does to me. Like I say, Brighty knows character, even when it's wrapped up in lion smell. Why, if and I was to die tonight, Uncle Jimmy'd step right into my boots, for as Brighty goes, right into my boots. Irons sharpened his knife blade on the rock, thinking. He hardly heard the next words. You see, old-timer was saying, Uncle Jimmy understands, just like I do, that Brighty's a free spirit. Seems like he's got to be free to breathe. The talk petered out and the fire burned low. Yawning, the two men went into the tent and settled down for the night. The old man on his cot, the young man wrapped up to his blanket. Between them, the big gold watch hung from the ridgepole, ticking the minutes away.